Great, let's go. Okay, great. Onegaishimasu. Very good. Okay, we'll just do a little bit. Looks enough. Yes. Let's go. Okay, and we can do the rotation. Okay, circling the hips. Yeah, changing direction. And changing. Okay, bending and straightening. Step out a little bit wider, rolling the knees. Yeah. And changing direction. A little bit wider, sinking down into the middle. Loosen out the hips. Great, hands on the knees, rotating through the back. Okay, a little bit wider, side to side, the legs. Okay, hold down one side. Change it over. Down, bring the toes up. Changing sides.
Okay.
Straight back, hands onto the same line. The forearms down, relaxing the head. Send it walking out of the hands. Stretching through the shoulders. Okay, walking the hands back and then feet together. Fold the body forwards. Resting the palms down. Relaxing the head. Nice and slowly coming back up. Standing. Great, let's go shoulder width apart. We can swing, just dropping it. Nice and heavy. Let the arms just arc away and down. Great. Get back into the center, swinging across to the shoulder. Twisting the hips a little bit. Great. Okay, back into the center, rolling the shoulders out. Nice big circles all the way. Changing the direction of the arms. Oh, okay, great. Shaking out the wrist at the top. That's the elbows. Yeah, up and down. Out to the sides. Great, circling the arms. Good, and checking out the legs. return to the feet, shaking the body. Right, okay, we'll go to Boken today. Okay, so just going to come out and just start with the first room. Just nice and slowly finding the back. And release into the ground. Just be stable with each cut. Okay, good. So we'll just look at one issue with this, which is basically once you've got the pattern, you want to start organizing the body around the center and settling in the hips just a touch before the cut. So what we learn at the beginning is like everything goes together, 1, 2, together, feet, hands, everything kind of starts and stops together. But look for now a little bit more of an elastic connection. So it's the same as you begin it. The center's drawing the sword up, and then the center's drawing it down. And especially in this case, the hips in the cut, think about the hips just a fraction before, just coming into the ground before the cut. So what you don't want to happen is that the center and the hips and the hands kind of land simultaneously together. Although that's the kind of start of the connection, you want to feel a little bit more of an elastic connection through the body. So the lower part of the body is going to kind of settle just a fraction before, and then the upper body is going to kind of hit that structure. So you're looking at this elastic, really relaxed structure at the end of it. If you think about like tiny hinko, that same kind of idea. Think of this as like really an exercise to settle the hips. Yeah. So increasingly away from like an upper body swinging exercise. Same with that swinging exercise we do. You want the hips to basically driving it. Hips reaching the ground all the time. And it's a slightly tricky idea because the movement's kind of counter to this feeling. So what you want to work on is the idea of being underneath the sword with this grip. So the problem is the sword's coming down and also my grip's on top of the sword. So it's very easy to be on top of the weapon this way. Everything goes like boom, over the top. Try and feel that you match it with the lower body now, and you want to keep the sense that the weight stays underneath the sword. So all the feelings here rather than here, being above the weapon. It's not really a technical, it's more of a feeling, but there's technical details which will matter, but it's just in terms of where I'm putting my feeling, in terms of how the hips are basically relating to the hands and the sword. So I can relate them by being like that on top of it, or I can relate them to being kind of wedged there and underneath it. Just get that kind of feeling here. There, the weight's down.
Michael, would you say that it's like, it's like the sword falls on top of you instead of you falling on top of the sword?
Right, just like that, yeah. So we use this phrase like also like the sword kind of slots into the hips or slots into the ground. So it's this idea that actually this is in place before the hands kind of coming down into it. And that's all like, this is also the pattern we use in Taijutsu as well. So I mostly want the hips to be stable, and then the top is going to come down into it rather than like that, press into it this way and then try and find the base. So it's like you want this is a great exercise for it because I've got a really solid base in the back leg and I'm just mobilizing the front, but I want to keep that kind of feeling underneath it. But yeah, that rather than kind of pushing on top of it or the body kind of falling on top, I want the weight. It's like you're dragging the sword down. So you want that feeling you're dragging it down into the hips. It's like a kind of pulling movement rather than a pushing out movement, which is a little bit tricky. That's it. Good. Great. Just see, you can stick with that exercise, kind of stopping at the back, or play with now basically making this a little bit more fluid movement. So you reach the back and then cut into it. This makes it really clear because if my timing's tied up, like with the feet and the hands are locked together, this kind of movement doesn't really go anywhere, kind of flowing. So I need that middle step, which is this elastic quality in the movement, to then take this into a kind of flowing or a dynamic movement. So that feeling now is really essential that the hips basically drive the sword up and then also drive that movement and reach the ground. Yeah. So if I'm locked in this kind of keyhole or this kind of static connection, the dynamic one will just look really disconnected. It will basically break apart because I can't really keep that connection in a dynamic sense. Okay. Okay. just play with this. It's like this. Okay, we'll go to this next, but just play with this connection. So you see this kind of back fist, but you're just play with first like locking it together. So the movement of the body is like that. So the hand and the foot, basically kind of unlock together, and that's like for coordination work. That's basically where you start. You got that kind of motion, that kind of motion, that kind of motion. So it's all kind of going together. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. That kind of feeling. Yeah. Yeah. So that first step's just so that they're actually moving together. And that's basically where they're moving at the same time. Connect together. Connect together. Yeah. Now look for that flexible step. Once you've got them together, this is a really easy exercise, but play with now the sense that the hips draw and draw it back. So I want the hips basically in place around at that point of the movement. So the hips get in place, that, and then you get this then elastic quality which can release through the hand. So there's other steps in this. Obviously, you will need to loosen the arm. I don't want to be too rigid with the arm, but the key is now that the hips are going to kind of do that kind of motion. So you have a much more flexible pattern now. Hips. Yeah, just play with it. So you're looking for like an elastic connection from the hip to the hand and also hip to the foot as well. Right. And then now you want to take that elastic quality and you want to basically turn it into a kind of whip or a wave with it. So play with the easiest, or the best way to do this is really relax the whole structure down. And then you're playing with the hip, basically drawing up and snatching out in one motion. So you've got now that kind of motion. So the hips basically rolling through that movement. So before you've got like 1, 2, and then you've got a kind of flexible hip, and then you want a really kind of fluid hip in the motion. So it's really doing that kind of thing. And I want that movement to translate to the hand. Boom, boom, boom. That's okay, just take it back into the bokken. So just going again back into the first suburi. Just blow that connection again. So the 𝒂𝒂𝗿 in a way kind of forms this first kind of static connection, basically timing everything together. And then I basically want to start getting that kind of flexibility where I'm getting the connection much more elastic. So start to feel then hopefully the hip start to lead. That's it. Yes, there we go. Yeah, good. Yeah. And then the key with that third level, or the going into slightly more of a wave, is that basically the hips don't find a stopping position in between. So the kind of bad thing about the 𝒂𝒂𝗿 is it teaches you to, or it tells us to kind of find a fixed position for the hip. to stop the hips and then start them again. In this pattern, you really want the hips to continue. So just play with that. You want to find the right timing where the hips reach the top of the movement and then send them in. That there. So it becomes basically one time. There's a change in the movement of the hip, back to that. I've got to keep the hips now, again, leading the movement, because if the hands take over, this basically splits me up. Starts to split up the movement. So I'm trying to keep the hips in charge and dynamic all the time. Yeah. Okay, now take this to Zengo, and look for that again. See if you can find straight away that kind of flexibility to it, so that the hip kicks the sword up, and the main thing is also that the weight sinks down. So you want to feel that you're really underneath the weapon all the time. You don't get raised up with it and then drop in. So think about sinking the weight, getting underneath the weapon. So sinking the hips into the back. All the time. Yeah. Yeah, just take this to a kind of taijutsu pattern, empty-handed pattern. Nice and easy one. It's just a kokyu on each side. So the key thing is that center being underneath it. In this case, in a sense, it's a bit easier because you've not got that kind of up and down movement. You're just thinking about coming into this kokyu position here. And then the key here is this: as you rotate, keep the weight underneath and then open it up. So you're looking for this kind of flexible quality through the rotation and then opening it out, engaging the hips, finding that pattern, but keeping the weight down through the rotation. Down. Through the rotation, down. Release it. Down. Release it. So the good thing in the Kihon is it teaches us to be kind of strong in position. So this position, get the hips in, everything kind of comes strong. The problem is that as I kind of go out of that position, I tend to kind of lose it and then find it again. So kind of coming in and out of that kind of connection. So the main thing with this kind of practice now, so a little bit, it's more elastic, but keep that sense of the weight, so that weight entering down here and keeping the form in the arms, but allowing it to be elastic. So it's got a kind of fluidity to it, rather than the sense that I kind of drop it and then I bring it back, drop it, bring it back. Think that you keep that connection, but it's flexible. You got these kind of connections. This is really useful when you go into like kind of henko, that sense that you're going through the transition into the position is full of weight underneath it. So that sense that the weight's underneath it. Weight's underneath it. Weight's underneath. Okay, great. Go back into the bokken. So just working with number 5 with the yokomenuchi and just starting on the spot. So again, just think about, if you can, first just find elastic timing. So you've got this kind of middle, basically cutting out the first step, where you basically time the hands, feet together. If you want, you can kind of go to that, but see if you can get, this is the hips driving up the sword and drawing it down. The key thing now again is that the hips settle in just before the cut. Settling, settling, settling. That's it. Okay, and start to play with advancing forward with it now. So the key thing with this is also the tip. So you want to get out of this kind of up down kind of raise, and it becomes much more circular now. So the tip's passing behind the head. So you've got this idea that the center's pressing in and it's splitting into the cut, into the sword. So the center's kind of passing through the sword and then coming into it this way. You want to really see this as one movement now. So the raise, cut becomes one thing, and that needs this kind of circular motion in the sword. There, that kind of feel. So the tip's going behind and then through into the cut. And through. You really want to feel the tips are kicking the sword up into the back. Good. That's it. Okay, good. I'll take this to 𝒂𝒂𝒿, so an empty-handed strike. Probably one of the weakest attacks you get in Aikido in terms of attacks in general. So we'll just go straight, see if we go straight into it. But just play with again. You're advancing in. You're going to use this hand protects. You come in, bring in the hand up to the top of the head, and then it arcs in with a hip push. So generally, this will be delivered off the line. So you've got the partner in front of you. You're going to come slightly off the line and cut in for the head this way. So you just want to basically time everything for together, coming up, arcing in and finding the cut here. And this hand's just coming up to protect the head. Yeah, so you kind of see this thing go on. So you're coming in, let the hip release the hand, and cut in this way. That's that. Nice simple 𝒂𝒂𝒿 strike. Good. Good. So the main issue is one of weight. So the main problem is with this attack, especially this attack, you tend to throw out the hand, and then the weight, the body's basically left behind. And then the only weight of it is the weight of the hand. And especially if you don't strengthen the hand, you're not used to striking with them. This is a really very weak attack. So just play with here, just with the hand out, just slightly, but just play with, if I just deliver the weight of the hand, like that, it's like a chop with the hand. And then what you want to get towards is where the center can basically drop in this way. So it's the difference between hitting with the hand with the weight kind of stuck, and then hitting with the hand where the weight's actually entered into it. So just play with it nice and easy like that, and you want one that's basically the weight's dropping in. The weight's dropped in. So the weight's already in the ground before that happens. And then you get this heavy kind of movement. You can apply this with really any kind of strike, but just looking at the 𝒂𝒂𝒿 here, that kind of feeling. That kind of feeling. Yeah. Yeah. So. Ouch.
Wanted to see what would happen if I resisted it when I dropped my weight.
Yeah.
Tried that.
Right, that one. Yeah. That's it. Okay. Now, just do a few when you don't strike through, so you're not kind of dropping through it. You just receive it. Be careful, just don't do too heavy. But you want that feeling again that you've got the weights underneath, and I'm kind of you're hitting into it. The weights absorb down, but just kind of keep that kind of pattern. So you're looking to just kind of control it now, but look for that same kind of exactly the same we're doing with the 𝒊𝒔𝒏𝒕. But you're just looking for now. There's a little bit of an arc from the hip. Look for that kind of feeling. The hard button is like you can do this really easy, like with a dead drop arm. Boom. It's very kind of powerful in a way, like a slap. Boom. It's very powerful, but doing it with a 𝒂𝒂𝒏 where you've got an actual structure behind it. That's the kind of tricky part, is to try and get that weight in with the structure of the arm into it. That's a lot of issues in Aikido because we're kind of coming into positions, but you want to keep that weight underneath it. So, yeah, great. And then just taking it back to the kind of step in, but feel that you're basically coming to the head and feel that you strike through and into it. So you've got that kind of feeling. And obviously, in terms of training, we're generally stopping the attack, but just play with that idea, kind of delivering again the weight in. It's tricky because you're coming into a kind of diagonal movement. Just play it after that. Weight really swift legs. Yeah, the other way you can think about this, if you imagine like I can't really show this, I've not really got anything I can use, but if you imagine a person stood in front of you, imagine you want to step in and take them by the shoulders and basically drop your weight into them. So you're stepping in and you want to feel like, oh, the whole weight enters through the body. So yeah, you've got to kind of form through the hands. This time I'm trying to grasp them, but I want to communicate the weight through the hands to the body and basically end up with the person trapped in the ground like this. You can try, if you've got anything that's kind of person shape, probably not. You can do it with a wall, but it's a little bit tricky. Just get this feeling you kind of enter in. Oh, the weight sinks in. Which is a really different feeling than like reaching out and the hands coming and the weight's left behind. So just yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. We'll come back into that 𝒂𝒂𝒏, but we'll go again, just taking the sword again. So we'll just do a really simple set with it, just working with number 7. So you just want a cut and then the thrusting. you have a slightly different hip movement now from the cutout. Again, focus on that sense that the hip kicks the sword in and then finds that thrust with it. Just play the nice simple pattern from a cut and then that. So mostly focusing on the thrust. Just look at that kind of elastic connection from hip to hand and so the feet as well. Hips to feet, hips to hand. Yeah, and again, the main idea with this is this idea of keeping the weight underneath it, or the main thing to work on with this. Again, the ski is really easy to kind of ride up the top of it and then do that kind of movement, kind of with the step. So look for in this case that you've got that position, everything's underneath it, and then the hips roll underneath the sword this way. So really focus on in this case what's below and underneath the sword, all that movement here from the hip transferring into the sword. And basically later when you're using this motion, it's generally coming from when someone's kind of pushing down on the weapon. And I need to get underneath and then thrust back in response to it. So you're looking for that movement and then the hips to get under the sword. So that's spiral pattern in, weight down underneath it. Great, and then just look at combining them together. So trying to bridge the strike and the ski. So that to that now. So again, that sense of that elastic quality being underneath the weapon is really kind of crucial for this to kind of start to flow together into one piece. Body's connected, but elastic through it. Okay, good. So we'll explore again with a kind of taijutsu pattern, same kind of idea. So in this case, we'll deal with the offering, but you're on the other side, so you're on the receiving end of it now. So we'll play with, in this case again, you're going to come off the line, use that front hand to protect the head here, and then you're delivering a strike into the head this way. So you're kind of mirroring the attack, but at the same time you want to wedge in and you want to send the strike into the head this way, basically against the structure this one. So you're coming in here and wedging off the line. Just start with that and then we'll add to it. So you come in there. Wedging in, the key things the body's engaged in. This hand's blending and this hand's striking down. Wedge, strike. Push. So we'll add to it. So once you've got the strike to the head, you've got the person in this kind of position. You want to take the arm and draw it down into this position. So if you continue this, you go for the head here, and then you switch into the hand to basically cut it down. Now from here, this is an okay position, but I'm basically vulnerable. So the person's basically still in front of me, and they can launch into that kind of counter attack. So what you do from here is similar to ski movement. The hip curls in, and then just play with the idea of entering in. So you can take this to any time. You can take it to 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂, you could take it to 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂. But the key with this is this kind of blend in, cut to the head, drop onto the arm, and then from here, the hip folds in, and then you take an entry. And I'm trying to basically get to a better position. Either get to the side or get to the back. And control the arm if I can. Do that, also that, also that. Good. And then the last week, just play with kind of blending it together. Yeah, the key thing is the sense of the body weight. So the body weight's here in the strike, here in this, and here at the end of this movement. So that idea, again, the weight staying underneath all the time. But being in the key is that sense of being in place before that kind of movement of the arms happens. Because if I'm tied together, it starts to be really robotic. It doesn't really go together. So play with the weight. So really kind of led by the center. There we go. Okay. So you're taking that same feeling, that kind of wave quality from the sword work. Try and get it here. Oh. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, okie dokie, great. We will bow out there. Very good. So. Okay, great. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
どうもありがとう
どうもありがとうございました。
Right. Great, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Michael.